and good evening. I'm Melisa Idris. Welcome to The Future is Female. This is the show where we find the extraordinary in every woman. I'm delighted to introduce my guest today, Adjunct Professor at Taylor's University, Dr Shuhana Shamsuddin, who's the founder and first president of the Malaysian Urban Design Association, also known as PEREKABANDAR, which is a registered NGO that champions good urban design practice in Malaysia and aspires to reclaim the character of Malaysian cities. I'm delighted to welcome her. Dr. Shuhana, thank you for being on the show with me today.
Thank you very much for inviting me, Melisa.
Your specialization is on the identity of place, which I find quite fascinating, and I'd love to talk to you about that. But before we kind of go into the specifics of urban design and the identity of place, maybe you can tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey, but also what sparked your passion for urban design. It's not something that many of us immediately are conscious of when we, as city dwellers living in the city, we don't think about the way a city is designed. So what sparked your interest?
Okay, to begin with, I am now a retired professor, but I still cannot retire in peace. like you mentioned, until I see Malaysia having cities with better quality urban spaces, better design cities that improve the quality of life of the people. And for what I've been really passionate about is having identity and character that are unique only to Malaysia. My journey started when I was accepted to become an assistant lecturer in UTM, where I first started into environmental planning at my first year. And this environmental planning is not the same as the urban and planning or town and regional planning, because it's more focusing on the quality of the environment when you plan the cities. So after that, I proceed to do this at my master's level, and I venture into urban design at that point, where I was mentored by one of the guru in urban design in UK, Emeritus Professor John Cliff Moulton, and he was the one who actually, inspired me to go into this field. And together with my husband, we pursued our PhD at the University of Nottingham in this field. And when we come back, we introduced this idea of creating better quality cities, not just to have not just to be functional, right, to serve the purpose, but also to give places and spaces for people.
Right. So how would you describe the public's awareness of urban design? I have to say, it's something that's only very recently come to my consciousness, despite me having lived in a city most of my life. So maybe you can also tell us what it entails.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, urban design suffers from the problem of being a no man's land. It's the field itself, the discipline itself, it actually sits as an interface between several allied disciplines that is more known to people, such as architecture, town planning, and landscape architecture. So as an interdisciplinary field, or the field that interface between these three major fields, there is a tendency for people to take for granted that each of the professions are taking care of it.
Right.
So, like the architect will say, oh, they're doing urban design when they design their buildings on the site. The town planners will say they are including urban design when they plan the cities. The landscape architects say when they do the landscaping, they also consider into urban design. But after several years, for the current situation now, urban design is already a field in itself. It is not a field that you can do without a training. It is an added value to the existing architects, planners, and landscape architects to go into urban design as a field of specialization, so that they are able to communicate between these three disciplines, to able to translate.
Can you give me an example of how that works in practice?
Okay. Say, for example, the planning works at deciding on the land uses. Okay. How the land is going to be used in terms of what are the activities that is allowed, and the density, as well as the plot ratio, to decide on the height of the building, and also to decide on the communication networks in terms of the transportation, how you can. So the bulk of the concern is more on the use of the land, because it's a very difficult situation when you get into land matters. There's a lot of juggling, not just bureaucracy, vested interests.
Oh, understood.
Because people normally, there will be a lot of lobbying for certain kind of use to be allowed. Like I said, I mean, if you're given a higher plot ratio or higher density to be built, you can get more money from development.
There's money to be made,
and nobody wants to give their land for public spaces to build.
Because there's no money to be
there's
made.
no money involved. So, well, that job has been done by the planners in deciding on the use of the land. But how would all this development take place in a manner to give a quality of environment that also respond to the climate, that respond to the cultural, the historical, and also the needs of the people? The policies cannot be, must be translated into a what I call a physical design parameter that allows the architects, once they get a site in the city to design their building, then they will be able to use these design parameters that's already been decided by the one who's going doing the urban design, so that the policies of the planner is actually being translated.
Okay.
Well, on the ground, on the site.
So you are the mediator.
Yes.
Okay.
I give you an analogy. The city, with all the professionals that has impact to the city, it's like an orchestra. So everybody has their own musical piece, which they are an expert of. If you are a violinist, you are expert at playing the violin, and then if you are the pianist, you play expert piano. But you cannot get a music by just playing on your own. Now, every of them have their own, like I said, specialization in the musical. But why do we need the conductor?
So everyone plays in tune instead. There's a melody.
Coordinated, integrated. So without a conductor, the orchestra will be playing noises. Because everybody will playing their own tune. Nobody is telling you where the pianist plays. You let the guitarist or the drummers. So the role of the conductor is very important to get a good music.
The symphony, the harmony.
The harmony. The same goes for urban design.
Okay.
So urban design do that.
So talk to me about how identity of place comes into play with urban design.
Okay, the ultimate goal of any urban design exercise is to achieve the sense of place and identity. So we want our cities to be distinctive, unique to our own environment and socio-cultural context, so that every city can be differentiated from others. Now, why is it important? I mean, people don't die if you live in a city that...
Right.
I mean, that's the reason why. Because urban design is looking into refinement and quality of life. That's why the priority is not as great as other field when it's involving safety, it's involving basic needs. So, in developed countries, you know, our near neighbor like Singapore, Japan, Australia, UK, they are going into refinement now. That's why urban design is more pursued in these developed countries compared to us. We are still in the stage of just building, you know, meeting basic needs.
Right. Yeah. Is there also, I guess, people don't see the priority of creating identity of space. The idea that if you look at a picture, a snapshot of a downtown city somewhere, that you can't tell where it is. It's just, you know, a concrete jungle, buildings and streets. You can't,
it's
no
only
sense.
in the historical parts that you can actually identify them, and they are the one which give the spirit and the soul to the place.
Right. So how does that work if you want to create a sense of place, a sense of identity in an urban setting? Is that possible? Because, as you said, it's kind of the historical places are the ones that gives us
identity. It is possible if you are designing the city responding to your climate. So, by right, the city in Malaysia should not be the same as the cities in the temperate country. Because we have the tropical climate to respond to. We have the rain and the sun all year round. And that's why I would expect, you know, if you really go into embrace urban design as part of the city building, the design of our streets and spaces will not be the same as the cities in London where it snows and or in America.
So we shouldn't be aspiring to...
Yeah, we should aspire to design for our context.
So what does that look like in KL? How would you describe KL's sense of identity or identity of place?
I was involved as the lead consultant to do the KL Heritage Trail Master Plan. So we were given the task to identify the heritage trails. Actually, KL has a lot of potential to be a city with strong identity had we have a strong urban design framework as a design strategy to decide how do we allow development to take place in KL in a way that responds to a certain character that you want to achieve. For example, a city must have a face, just like a human. For human being, how do you identify yourself or others? Through the face, isn't it?
Right.
The same goes for the city. So we have to focus on the city center to give that face that we can actually give the character and identity for KL. So the center of a city from urban design perspectives is not the center as decided by the planners as a central business district. Because we're not in urban design, we don't focus on the land use or the building use. We focus on the places which have meanings and association to people from the very beginning, because the city is not static. The city is dynamic, it evolves. So in order to have a sense of identity, you must be able to have places that reminds them of the roots.
Okay, so spaces and places that have a meaning and association to people. Give me an example. In KL, where are these spaces?
Okay, just imagine if somebody proposed the Dataran Merdeka to be a place where you can build another tower block.
Oh no, we can't. We cannot accept that.
Why?
Because of the historical significance.
Yeah, that's what I said about meanings and association.
Understood.
Or say somebody said, let's close up the two rivers. Klang, and because they're so murky, even despite the river of life project, it's still to me like a river of death. Nothing can survive in the waters. Why don't you just cover up the river and build buildings over there? What would you feel?
No.
Even though the water it doesn't resemble a river, it looks like a monsoon drain, but the meanings and association is about the river.
Kuala Lumpur.
Yes.
We are the confluence.
KL will not exist because when we did the Heritage Master Plan, we discovered that the genius loci of KL, genius loci is actually a concept to describe the spirit and the soul of the place that gives it a sense of existence, so that you will remember the place because of it. So in our research, when we did the master plan, we discovered that a unique thing about KL that is shared with other cities like Rome and San Francisco is that KL was built on 7 hills.
7 hills?
Yes. And the other, because Rome and San Francisco also was built on 7 hills, and they do not, when they built their cities, they responded to the hills. If you've been to San Francisco,
is very
you can
hilly.
you can feel the hills. But in KL, the 7 hills are there. Some are now in the process. I don't know, but some of the hills are not really being felt because of the way
it's not
development.
so much undulating the way we
because
see.
you don't control the heights of the building to respond to the hills. But the unique thing about KL as compared to Rome and San Francisco is that it is built on 7 hills at the meeting point of 2 rivers. How unique it is!
Wonderful.
If we were to look into urban design, giving a focus on urban design, we would have built a very unique city in KL. If you respond to the way the development takes place and the design that responded to the 2 rivers and the 7 hills, this is the only city in the world with that.
You're
quality.
getting me very excited about the potential.
I was so excited when I discovered
of
that.
KL.
But when I tell people, do you know KL have 7 hills? Where is it? That was the response.
I was quite surprised because you don't feel the hills. It almost feels quite level, right? Yeah.
I mean, the best example, Bukit Nenas. It's nama lagi Bukit Nenas.
Where is the
Bukit
hill?
Aman, Bukit Aman, Bukit Bintang. They are all the hills the Bukit Silon. But because the way you develop, you do not see the importance of designing cities along the process of planning. Planning is very important. You have to plan. You have to plan the city so that you have compatible users. So you don't decide on users that's not compatible to be near to each other. But you also have to control the density, because the more density you build, the more dense you build, the higher the buildings. The first thing that will come into the picture is the increase in traffic. And that's why this thing, the traffic congestion is already a nightmare now. And I think, another thing that we are concerned in urban design is the mental health of the people. If you are living in a city with very poor quality of environment, very poor access to recreation, sports and recreation and leisure, people are living in an overcrowded situation, and much of their life is being spent in the cars, in the congestion.
Yeah.
And they go out. I always make this joke. We are like Draculas, We get out very late, early in the morning, it's dark.
Yeah.
And we come back late in the evening, it's already dark. So we don't see the sun.
The latest, I think the Health and Morbidity report said that almost 1 million Malaysians are depressed. And it's because
the mental health is a real issue.
There are social determinants to mental health, which includes our built environment, which includes the way we live our lives, being stuck in traffic every day.
Who are the one who actually causes the traffic congestion?
Right.
We built the city that gives us the problem. Now we have to find a solution to the problem.
Can I also ask you about the role of urban design and our environment, our built environment, and how that may exacerbate inequalities? How can we think about using urban design to encourage inclusion, to encourage diversity, social justice, gender equality? How do we think about all those things that contribute to our quality of life?
Yeah. Actually, the concern of urban design is to design better quality of spaces that take into account accessibility, the comfort of people, safety, giving better quality experience to the people, so that the city is not just a place where you spend your money to go shopping or to work, but it's also a place where you can meet people, you can have interaction. I think you've been all over, I think you must been all over the world to other cities in the world where you can enjoy yourself to go to the cities where there are places and spaces for people to meet in a very comfortable and safe situation. So our problem is that we are basically building roads, not streets. Because there's a difference in urban design. There's a difference between roads and streets. Roads are just channels of movement for vehicular, but streets are behavior setting. It allows the movement of the vehicular. At the same time, it allows the people to interact and to have a setting for them to enjoy their daily life, and that reflects their culture. Remember in the past, Malaysia, we have this hanging out at the coffee shop, people, sitting in the sidewalk, the 5-foot walkway, drinking. That is the kind of life that has now been pursued in other European countries like Paris.
Al fresco dining.
We have done it here in Malaysia.
Well, that was, as you said, that was the way we lived our life, and it was appropriate for our climate.
At that time. But actually, this climate issue is that you have to design with the climate. You cannot change the climate because the climate is given to us by God, but we can actually modify the environment to suit our needs by actually designing to suit the kind of the climate that we are facing.
What would that look like? So I hear lots of people say, "Oh, Malaysia tak boleh jalan; it's too hot to walk."
Because we don't use shading devices.
Trees.
Sometimes it's not necessary trees.
Okay.
The 5-foot walkway, the kaki lima, of the old shop houses, how it is very cooling and very comfortable to walk along the kaki lima. If it's rain, we don't get wet because it's an arcade. They have a column that enclose the space. But the modern shop house, you can still get wet because it's just an exposed overhang. So actually, there's a lot of things we can learn from how we built the cities in the past. Because that's why the motto of PEREKABANDAR is to reclaim back the character of Malaysian cities. Let me go back to the character where we used to respond very well to our climate. Why do we have padang instead of squares like in Italy or piazza in Italy? Because in tropical climate, it's easy to grow the grasses.
Okay, yeah.
And then we can play, and in the evening we can play football, play cricket. During the British time, they play cricket, but they can't do that in the temperate climate countries. So that's why our city should look different, because of this response to the climate in the way we design.
So I should probably ask you also about PEREKABANDAR, the NGO that you're with, reclaiming Malaysian cities, right? Can we reclaim KL now?
Yes, but we need to change our mindset. We need to have a paradigm shift to look into the importance of urban design in the way we build our cities. It should go concurrently with the policies of planning and development, so that every local authority should have an urban design unit to become the one who translate all these planning policies into design parameters that look into the three-dimensional aspects of the cities, and also to guide the architects, because the architects, like I mentioned the orchestra, they are an expert on their own to design their own building within their own site, and they have a client. That's why in UK, most of the development control are focusing on design control, so that the architects can tell their clients, no, we have to do this because the policy said they're going to create a square or a sidewalk for pedestrian linkages. Because the architect cannot decide that on their own.
Right.
Because the client will not want to pay. Why does the landowner or the client wants to pay for a public space?
Right. The client will have its own interest.
Yes. So the local authority, through the urban design unit, can require that as part of the process to design, that keeps so that everybody is keeping with each other.
Okay, so how does urban design respond to the climate crisis?
Okay, at the moment, the current trend is to go for water-sensitive urban design.
Water-sensitive? Is that for floods?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you know, Malaysia is a country surrounded by water. We are a peninsula. We have two important seas surrounding, and all our cities are water-based cities, either built by the water, by the river, or at the estuary. But still, we are bonded by the river. So we should be the end. Furthermore, we got a heavy downpour. Our rainfall is much heavier than those in the Saudi Arabia or in the temperate climate. So we must anticipate that when something goes wrong and when there is a change in the current weather, where would the water go? Where the water go? When there is in this situation, our rivers are not clogged. The embankment is already they can swell, and then explode and pour the water into the streets. And our drains are not equipped with the underground sewer that will absorb the water. So in water-sensitive urban design, you have to design cities that actually have plenty of open spaces that will absorb, like acting like a sponge to absorb the water. You see, the more dense you build, the more tarmac and cement, this you concrete jungle aspect, these materials doesn't absorb water. So when the rain falls on the buildings, quickly it will go to the streets, and within 1 hour you have flash floods. So it's about time we go for this water sensitive urban design, especially in KL, because it is so densely built. And it's also, mind you, KL is actually located in a valley.
Because the basin,
it's a basin there. So naturally water will be collected very fast.
Well, I mean, I could speak to you for another hour, but in the couple of minutes that we have left, I have to ask you, what is your vision? I mean, you've been in this industry so long. You are, you've worked around the world. You've received awards. You've published extensively. What is your vision for maybe not just KL, but the other cities of Malaysia that maybe don't get enough love the way we get, the capital city gets it?
The very reason I set up this NGO, Nation Never, even though it's a bit late, but it's better late than never, is because after I retired in 20, I don't see any changes to the way the approach, the way we build our city. We're still focusing on building more and more buildings. There are more and more roads going into the streets. The traffic jams, it was a nightmare 20, 40 years ago. It's still a nightmare. It hasn't been resolved.
Nightmare.
So I said, we need to have an NGO to champion this, even though the authorities are not really because like you say, the priority is not there. They're more important things to do, other priorities. Yeah. But if you don't have an NGO that like people like me, telling I preach it to the converted in the universities. What's the point? Yeah. They are students, they know it. But when they go out to work, the system is not ready. So my vision is that to see urban design being embraced and accepted as an important part of city building, the way it has been done in the developed countries. Although we are not a developed country, but we should aspire to be a developed country. We cannot be developing countries forever. Right. We are going towards that direction. So to be a developed country, you have to design your cities, not just plan and build it at the whim and fancy to the developers. To put some thought and care into the way our cities are. My last note on this, we have to build people-friendly cities. The people are the most important, not the cars. But now we are giving priority to the cars. And yet we are the one who lives in the city. So with urban design, emphasis on design, then people-friendly cities can be easily Dr. Shuhana, what a joy it is to speak to you. Thank you so much for being on the show with me today. Thank you very much, Melisa. That's all we have for you on this episode of The Future is Female. I'm Melisa Idris signing off for the evening. Thank you so much for watching and good night.